All right, so we're making a table. So this is the finished product, and taking along for the ride. So a few years ago, I had a tree taken down at my mother's house, and this is the Suffering Tree Service doing their thing. They wound up dropping everything, and they sliced up a couple cookies for me, and they've been drying for a while. This was the cookie that the client picked out. This is the router and the flattening bit that I'll be using. Did about probably 3 passes total. I only videotaped, I think, one of them because it kind of gets a little boring. Some people go nuts with these flattening jigs, but it's very simple. It's just a plywood box and some 2x4s that I ran over the joiner to make sure they were nice and straight. Next, I'm going to be setting up for the black dyed epoxy pour. I'm using the Ecopoxy system. I'm using Alex caulk just to kind of seal everything so nothing leaks out. The epoxy is rather expensive, so I'd rather not have any leaks. So just kind of going around with it pretty heavy and make sure nothing spills out. So with this epoxy, you can really only lay on 1 inch at a time. So trying to figure out volume can be a little tricky. So if you look inside the crack, there's a whole bunch of rice in there. So I was able to put in 1 inch of rice, and then I was able to pour it into a measuring cup, and that would determine how much epoxy I would need for that initial pour. It came out pretty accurate. I was happy with the results. In a future video, I have another one where I had to fill in some lettering, and I wound up using sand for it, which worked out very well. I believe I did a total of 3 pours throughout this project and laying 1 inch at a time. If you put in too much epoxy, the heat that's generated during its curing process will cause a lot of bubbles and stuff, so I'd like to try to avoid doing that. All right, so now the unmolding process starts. So we unscrew the substrate off the bottom. The clear packing tape on the bottom helped out tremendously. Everything peeled off very easily. You can see the silicone definitely did its job. So now the sanding starts, and there was a lot of it. I started with 60 grit on the belt sander. I take a carpenter's pencil and scribble all over the top, and that helps me kind of gauge of how much material I'm taking off and what spots I've hit and what spots I need to kind of hit a little bit more. But I'm constantly going around with the 24-inch stirrup blade just to make sure everything stays flat. After the belt sander, I followed up with the random orbit just to take some of the heavy lines out caused by the belt sander. So now I'm just going around the whole table, using a couple different chisels, sander. I just want to smooth everything out, take any leftover bark off. There'll be a couple shots coming up of me taking off some of the plywood forms that I had glued on there just to keep the epoxy from coming out. So it takes a little bit of time, but you can really put your mark on it and have some fun with it. So this is one of the cooler parts of the table, and I didn't really notice it until I started doing all this sanding, but there were a few little swirls in the grain, and I kind of just wanted to clean them out and showcase them. So I started with some dental picks, and then I had a few different brushes that I tried, some nylon brushes and a couple brass brushes that I tried just to kind of clean it out. So I didn't really disturb any of the grain on the inside, but everything was smooth on the outside. Once the finish is on there, it'll really pop. So this is the underside of the table, so I wanted to try out a few different filling methods. So a few ones that I've seen online. Blacktail Studio was talking about using a wax stick and melting it in there. I had some pretty good luck with that. So it seemed like scraping was kind of the way to go, but this is use a little bit of a tune-up, so let's do that real quick. This is kind of the quick and dirty way of how I tune up my card scrapers. I'm just gonna file everything nice and flat, and then I'm just gonna roll a burr over on it with a piece of hardened tool steel. This section I wound up doing some filling with the black Star Bond CA glue in conjunction with the super thin or hot stuff CA glue, and that just kind of stiffened up the areas that may have been a little bit soft. So now it's on to filling the top. I started out with the black Star Bond epoxy and a little bit of the melt-in fill stick. Everything was then cleaned up with either the scraper or 120 on the belt sander or the 120 on the orbital sander. After that, I progressed through the grits, 150, 180, and then 220, and just sanded everything out nice and smooth. The finish that I chose for this was a water-based urethane spar varnish. I didn't get a tremendous amount of video because it's rather repetitive. It's put a coat on, sand it to 220, rinse and repeat. I think I did about 5 coats total on this table. So lastly, we got to throw the hairpin legs on the bottom. I chose to install them with threaded inserts and bolts. I simply mark out the holes, I drill them out, install the threaded inserts with a touch of CA glue, and it gives you a nice clean look. You could certainly screw them on, but if you ever have to take the legs on and off, less of a chance of stripping anything out. So that wraps up this table build. I want to thank everyone for watching, and hope you guys learned something. Have a great day.